okay down there, Tank?
All right, ready?
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sharonville's council meeting. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise. We're going to have a moment of silent prayer. Excuse me. And Paul Schmidt is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And before we start our silent prayer, I would like to, everyone just remember the family of Bobby Fisher. He worked with us and here for quite some time and was a very beloved member of our police department, and he lost his battle with cancer. So if you could remember him and his family, that would be great. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Coulter?
Here.
Mr. Lovett?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
And Dave Cook is absent with notice.
Approval of February 28th, 2023's regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those those meeting minutes? Seeing none, they stand as written and distributed. Reports and communication, Mayor Hardman.
Thank you. So first of all, with regard to Mayor's Court for February 2023, we had total revenue of the month of $20,668.50. For a complete breakdown of court costs, fines, and fees, that report will be submitted and part of the record for you all to take a look at. Mr. Blomer requested something of us. Prior to COVID, we had agreed to fill the full-time program coordinator position. So basically it was a bit of a promotion for the individual who has been doing programming at the convention at our community center up to that time. So we had approved making that move pre-COVID. When COVID hit, we kind of put the brakes on that because of wasn't any programming going on, because we couldn't really do a whole lot at that time, and we hadn't revisited it since then. So we are revisiting it. So I have approved that happening. We also have an issue with regard to the retention and maintaining of part-time employment at the recreation center. It's caused some voids and some issues with the operation of the facility, and we continue to need some programming assistance and things going on there. So as a result of some changes in staffing at the recreation center or in our recreation department, the lack of part-time employees, there is some additional money on the upside of the budget as it relates to personnel in order to move or create a full-time programming position to supplement that program coordinator or manager position. So I have given Michael the go-ahead to do that with the money that we currently have within the budget, so there will be no need for additional budget. We think it's a thing that we will be able to sustain regularly. We hope, we are talking to civil service as to whether or not those positions can be and will be promotional. We think one of them definitely will probably be promotional. The other one may require testing, and hopefully our candidate who we'd like to move into that position will test high enough to do that. If not, we'll have another great candidate, hopefully, to move into that role. So wanted to give you that update. I know Michael sent an email yesterday to the Recreation Committee members just to give you an update, so it wasn't a surprise to any of you. I thought he was going to do that to all of you, so because I was surprised because I didn't get it. Because I thought we were sending it to all elected, so you would have that knowledge before tonight, but we certainly wanted to give you that input. That was just a decision we made earlier this week, so it's not, so it hasn't been delayed anything but an extra 12 hours from that standpoint. Again, I think the convention center continues to do a great job, even in midst of a huge construction project. Are doing a great job serving lots of folks. I was there Saturday morning. I think many of you were there Saturday morning for a big event that took place there. So they continue to do an excellent job of making sure that we have a facility that is worthy of our community and truly a beacon to our Hamilton County and our region here, especially in light of some of the ongoing discussions as it relates to the downtown convention center district and how we as a city or we as a county, as a region, will play in those plans. I think you're going to be hearing a lot in the next few weeks and months as it relates to that. And as it stands right now, I feel like I and others that have some say in those projects are a little behind the 8 ball in light of communication that is not happening as it relates to those projects and how it might impact our lodging community. So you might be hearing some more vocal comments and discussion about that. Right now, there is a proposal that entails increasing the lodging tax to all of our hotels here in Hamilton County in order to pay for additional benefits to the city of Cincinnati. So again, there's a regional impact to that we want to be a part of, but we want to make sure that our businesses aren't being hurt, aren't being impacted, especially when we are neighbors to Butler County and Warren County, and they're already much lower lodging taxes than ours. So, so those are things to be on the lookout for, and I will certainly keep you apprised of those situations. But there's a lot of pretty pictures out there. There's a lot of pretty plans. There's a lot of things that are hitting the media that maybe you saw a big rendering of a brand new arena to come to downtown Cincinnati. What there aren't are really good answers as to how that's being paid for and how these amenities in the city of Cincinnati that have a regional impact, that do impact us in Sharonville, but how they are being paid for that don't have a detrimental impact to those of us in our northern suburbs that do have a very large impact on what our county lodging tax dollars bring in. If you remember, during parts of COVID, we were bringing more money in from the northern communities were bringing more money in for county lodging tax dollars than the city of Cincinnati was, because of our ability to respond to certain things and because of the clientele we were bringing in to our lodging facilities that weren't happening in downtown Cincinnati. We are always good partners with the county. We have always been good partners with the city of Cincinnati, especially when it comes to convention and tourism. I will commit to always being that good partner. I want to make sure that it's not just a one-way street. So that's all I have for tonight.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we'll move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Just a few things before we get into the legislation. For those who registered for Thursday's annual Business Appreciation Breakfast, just a reminder, it starts at 8 o'clock for networking and the breakfast. At 8:30 will be the kickoff. Jim Doughton's going to be speaking about the expansion and some incentive packages that will be in place for the business community. And then Chad Munitz, who's the Chief Development Officer of FC Cincinnati, will be speaking about all soccer things related to that team. There is still a few spots available. If you didn't register and you are interested, just let me know. There are a few remaining slots open. The second, Councilman Tankersley sent this to me, I think last night, if I remember right. On Facebook, there's a company called Green Energy Connect that is advertising a citywide Sharonville solar program that's open to all homeowners. And although they don't come out and specifically say that it's city sponsored or anything like that, they do use city photos of our city hall and apparently of our firehouse as well.
No, I just saw
just I couldn't find this today. Rob was kind to send me still photos so I could actually read what was said. In their Facebook post, it talks about the city of Belleville, even though it talks about Sharonville. City of Belleville is further down their paragraph. So just wanted everybody to know that's watching. This is not a city-sponsored program. And you could interpret it as somebody who reached out to Rob did, that we are somehow involved, and we are not. So moving into the legislation, ordinance 2023-18E is an opioid settlement fund related piece of legislation, and Luke is here tonight to talk about this.
Good evening. So over the last couple years, the city's participated in a couple of national opioid settlements. These settlements continue to keep coming down the pike, and so what we're asking for tonight is to authorize the Safety Service Director to have the authority to participate and receive any further opioid settlements that are coming. To date, we've received just under $36,000 from these settlements, and we've yet to appropriate or expend any of the funds as we wait for further guidance to help us facilitate that.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Chief Nesbitt's here this evening to talk about 2023-21, as well as the resolution R-2E.
2321 is a request to dispose of 2 police vehicles that have reached the limit of their serviceable life. These cars were replaced in legislation that was passed previously that allows us to buy the replacements. So this disposes of things that we no longer need. And 23R02E is a resolution request by Springdale Police Department to place a flock camera inside the city limits of Sharonville, Chesterdale Road, near the Willows apartment complex. Their flock camera system is basically identical to ours, same purpose, same format, same structure. I did get clarification. Initially, I thought they were going to use one of our poles, but they are going to use a flock pole, which is basically a nondescript black pole, and the camera system is identical to ours.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Chief, is it possible to explain what these flock cameras are? Because I've been asked about it as far as what they do. Are they monitoring? You know, what are they monitoring and everything else like that?
So the flock camera system is designed to capture the license plate, vehicle data information as the vehicle passes by. So it doesn't capture any information about who's driving the vehicle, as it does that the car passed a given location. And inside the database, law enforcement is capable of searching for a wanted vehicle or setting up alerts that stolen vehicles or critical missings or wanted persons information attached to that license plate would notify law enforcement in a proactive sense. So from that perspective, it allows us to react in real time to the presence of criminal activity in an area, or that allows for us to, in real time, react for the recovery of stolen vehicles or wanted persons. There are many examples of success stories with flock. One of the more recent and most notable one was an abduction of a child that occurred in Michigan, and they were able to use flock technology to track the vehicle as it progressed into Florida, and it gave them real-time information to intercept that vehicle and return the child home. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, I've had some people ask me, are they being filmed?
They are not.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Lovett?
Just real quick, we spoke about, in law committee, about the camera was supposed to be on an existing pole. Does the new pole being installed, does that come with any maintenance requirements on our right-of-way from?
Just like our camera system, most of our pole cameras were installed on existing city-owned poles. But there were a few where there was no pole available for the best strategic location of that camera. So we installed a couple of our flock poles ourselves, and they're just basically a 6 or 8 foot tall black pole that allows them to connect their camera and solar array to it. Requires nothing, and all the maintenance is, just like in our contract, is part of Springdale's agreement. So if something were to happen to that pole, if it needed something, if we deemed it to need something, Springdale would arrange for flock to take care of it.
Any other questions? Mr. Wilson?
Just one quick one. These cameras, when they're reading license plates, are they reading that barcode that's on the bottom right-hand side of a license plate?
They are capturing basically an image of the entire rear of the vehicle and focusing the technology captures the license plate information specific. But the technology is advanced enough that if you were looking for a gray Honda, you could search for gray Honda, but it doesn't capture any barcode information to my knowledge.
I'm just trying to figure out what it was reading. There is a barcode on the bottom of license plates, which,
Mayor Hardman?
I think that's for BMV's use.
okay.
I think the technology really is a fantastic piece of crime prevention or crime solving technology. As the chief alluded to, I recently was involved in a case of a gentleman who was robbing gas stations, and he would take his license plates off the car when he would go to the gas station. So it couldn't really do anything as far as finding a license plate. But what they were able to do was apparently the cameras can measure the length between taillights, so it can narrow down kind of the type of car you're looking at, and that helps generate some leads as to who and what's going on. So it's a great piece of technology, but I think there's also a protection of individual civil rights and liberties. I mean, it's not looking inside the car. You're not going to get to see who's driving the car through this technology. It's looking at what's on the outside of that car and being able to find things. And for example, I mean, one of the great reasons why I'm very happy we're doing this is we had an incident here in Sharonville where if that had happened with these cameras and where we are placing cameras, we probably would have had information that would have helped us toward finding or potentially locating suspects, or at least a car that had driven away from that particular event.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2023-22E is a request from Chief Sunderman to sell some turnout gear to Evendale. One of our firefighters is leaving us for Evendale, and due to the time it takes to get turnout gear, and which is somewhat custom made, he's requesting that we sell the turnout gear to Evendale. We paid $2,564 for it. When we purchased it, Evendale will be buying it from us for $2,500, so it's a win-win situation. They get turnout gear for someone immediately versus having to rent gear, and then we get the funds back to buy our next turnout gear as well. So it's a win-win, and I'll answer any questions on that one if there's any.
Any questions? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2023-23E deals with the number of publications that Terry needs to make of our ordinance titles. And back in 1990, City Council changed that from 1 to 2. And in researching this, there's nothing in the Ohio Revised Code that requires 2 publications. And Terry shared that due to the cost of publication, she would really like it to go back to 1. And she provided an example, and I don't think everything's scanned that was provided in the packet for some reason, but she provided an example of 6 publications recently that for a single publication, or 6 ordinances, I'm sorry, for a single publication costs roughly $500, and for 2 publications that jumped to $840. So reducing this back to 1 publication really will save some money, and that's the request this evening. I don't know, Terry, if you have anything to add to that. And then ordinance 2023-24 deals with an appropriation request regarding Mostella Road, and Scott and Steve are here to talk about that this evening.
Good evening.
Partner in crime left you.
Yeah.
I saw that, I'm just noticing.
We had put the Mostella Road project in the original 2023 budget, both the local share and the proposed grant share we were requesting from OPWC. When the initial awards went out, I think January, or it might have been in late 2022. But post-budget, we were notified that we were not going to be successful in getting that grant going. So we had a need for some small pools of budget contingencies for some of the projects going on downtown, the FEMA and the downtown loop project, both going very well. But we had all of our budget for those projects plus some contingency funds really late in 2022. Those got awarded, and now we have a minor change order that we need to address. We typically pull some contingencies from our 201 street fund. The streetscape and the FEMA project, there could be an argument we could use some street funds, but we've tried to stay away from that and go with more of just the city's 401 capital fund. So we were leveraging some funds for that because these were kind of going unused, and we kind of talked to the committee and just we're going to recycle those. And then we also kind of made a decision there a month or so ago to expand the 2023 street program, and we went ahead and really quickly made notice in the hometown guide we were going to expand and add a few streets. So, and then the phone rang a couple of times, and we were told that they could give us a very large portion of what we had asked for, and then the phone rang again a week later, and they said we can give you everything that you asked for. So, as far as getting, we're requesting the additional $500,000 to sort of backfill what we're using for the expansion of the street program, which is getting some work done that we would have probably pursued next year anyways, and then also kind of having some extra pots of money as these projects wind down. Any questions on those matters?
Any questions, anyone? Thank you very much.
Just one additional point on the Mostella Road thing. We recently gave an incentive to a company in that area, and kudos to Steve because he's been working with ODOT on another funding source that because of all that, we may be getting an extra $100,000. The lady that Steve's working with is going to make that recommendation. Now, whether it goes anywhere, once it goes to whoever it goes to, who knows, but Steve is working toward that, and it'll be nice if we can get an extra $100,000. So. And I think that's the balance of the legislation this evening.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Lucas? Okay. Just following up what I said about Bobby Fisher, I did go ahead and donate as a council to the Combat Boots and Cancer Fund for his family at their request. So the donation was sent. Other than that, I don't have anything, so we'll move to our Clerk of Council, Mrs. Buhai.
Thanks, no report.
Thank you. Our Law Director, Mr. Lippert.
Yes, as far as ordinance 23E, just let me commend Mrs. Buhait as an excellent watchdog of taxpayer dollars.
Yes.
She is all over it. Other than that, I am asking council to consider late delivery of resolution 2023R03E. Ohio Revised Code, in my opinion, requires the legislative authority of the city to direct me to pursue certain claims, in this case relating to the Sharonville Convention Center expansion and possible claims with design omissions and construction management, and that's all contained in the resolution draft that has been presented to each of you. So I am asking you to consider that for late delivery and passage this evening, unless anybody has any questions.
Will that be a first and only reading?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Just wanted to verify it. Thank you. Residents that wish to be heard this evening.
Jim Schmidt, 12215 Pickwick Place, Sharonville. Mr. Mayor, I got a question. You mentioned about the hotel income, and it seems to me that back a long time ago when the convention center was first built, that Sharonville had more hotel rooms than the city of Cincinnati? Is that right, or is that still the case?
You mean when the original convention center was
Yeah.
built?
Yeah.
That's history that I probably couldn't tell you. It's very possible.
Well, I know some of those were torn down, and non-existent. I was just curious, you know.
Yeah, it's very possible. I know that we have a large amount of rooms.
Yeah.
I don't think we have more rooms than the city of Cincinnati has, but I know that we are a very, very significant portion of the total county lodging tax dollars
Right.
that come in.
Right.
Us and Blue Ash, especially when you combine the two of us together, or all of our northern region for that matter.
Yeah. And Mr. Lucas got a question, or you mentioned about the clean air, whatever that on the Facebook was. I think I got a little bit more than a postcard in the mail today regarding that, about the solar. Well, being a condo in Copperfield, I don't think the homeowners would let me do it. The other thing I was wondering, and I don't know, I don't remember the term, but there's a company or whatever that we get a little bit less bill on our electric because we're connected with another.
We're aggregated with.
Yes.
We're aggregated with one another.
Yeah, we are still, okay, I thought we were, but I took this one from about that I got today and just threw it in the trash.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council committees, community development, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, the March meeting, March 8th, the Planning Commission approved conditional use permit of 2 temporary tents at the Third Eye Brewery, and will be there until that usage until the end of October. This month meeting of the BZA and the Planning Commission will take place on April the 19th, so it's a little bit of a change. It's the third Wednesday this month. BZA will be at 6:30, followed by the Planning Commission meeting. There are 2 agenda items for each of those meetings. The first is a variance for the BZA to allow a trailer on residential property. The second one is an appeal of a zoning enforcement order. For the Planning Commission, there will be a flood zone protection ordinance update, and then there also a site plan review for Carriage House Car Wash.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions? We'll go on to our community services, Mr. Lovett.
Thank you. My report is on file with Ms. Buhite. I do want to touch on a couple things real quick. Our community center now has an ice cream machine, and we are all very grateful for that. So this summer, if you're at the pool, get an ice cream. Number 2, it's taken them several years to do that. The other thing I do want to touch base on, and I don't think we're too far into this, but there is a train blockage detection system that's being conversed about and kind of looking into, something that I know many of us have talked about at the 5-year plan, but it's called Trainfo, TRAINFO, and it supposedly, it detects how long the trains are going to be, and there's a whole lot of technology I don't genuinely understand. But it kind of gives people an idea of how long the trains are going to take. So they're looking into it, they're touching base on it and seeing if it would be something that we should be pursuing further. So anyways, on top of that, our next meeting is on April 5th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions? Budget and Finance and Project Oversight, Mr. Cook is not here. Honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Yes, tonight I'm going to honor the Princeton High School basketball team, the girls' team, who are the Division I state champs. They defeated Umstead Falls 69-51. Congratulations, ladies. I was going to honor Mother Nature for giving us great weather, but she got tossed. Thank you.
Mother Nature stepped in.
Perfect. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Yes, thank you. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on the 21st, 4 p.m., Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
Thank you. Rule suspension motion, but before I do that, is there a motion to accept late delivery of Resolution 2023R03E? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mr. Schmidt. Any discussion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and we do accept that late delivery. Rule suspension motion for a first and only reading with immediate effectivity for ordinance 2023-22E, 2023-23E, and 2023-24. First and only reading with 30-day effectivity, ordinance 2023-21. And we're going to be doing a second and third reading with immediate effectivity for ordinance 2023-18E. Is there such a motion? So moved by Mr.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
Can we add to first and only reading with immediate effectivity the resolutions as well? The
Yes.
The flock camera resolution as well as the late delivery resolution?
Yes. We will go ahead and, thank you. We'll go ahead and add that. So I'll include resolution 2023-R03E and 2023-R02E. Is there a motion now? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call. Or I'm sorry, seeing none. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And we'll move on to unfinished business.
Okay. This is the second and the third reading for emergency ordinance 2023-18E, accepting opioid settlement funds and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-18E? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call?
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2023-18E has been approved. This is the second reading of ordinance 2023-19, establishing a policy for the repair and replacement of resident mailboxes damaged by city snowplow operations. Also a second reading of ordinance 2023-20, amending Chapter 121 of the Sharonville Codified Ordinances regarding council procedure.
New business?
First and only reading of ordinance 2023-21, authorizing the disposal of 2 police department vehicles.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-21? So moved by Mr. Lovett, second by Mr. Coulter. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-21 has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2023-22E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to sell fire department turnout gear to the village of Avondale and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-22E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Coulter. Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2023-22E has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2023-23E, amending section 125.01 of the Sharonville Codified Ordinances regarding newspaper publication of ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-23E? So moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2023-23E has been approved. First and only reading of ordinance 2023-24, amending 2023 appropriations for the 401 Capital Fund.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-24? So moved by Mr. Coulter, second by Mr. Tankersley. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-24 has been approved. First and only reading of resolution 2023-R02E, Resolution authorizing the City of Springdale to install one flock camera on Sharonville property and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass Resolution 2023-R02E? So moved by Mr. Schmidt, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Levitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt? Resolution 2023-R02E has been approved. First and only reading of Resolution 2023-R03E, resolution directing the pursuit of claims related to the Sharonville Convention Center expansion and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass Resolution 2023-R03E? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Coulter. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Levitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-R03E has been approved.
This is another opportunity for residents. We're good? Okay, thank you, sir. Any other matters to come before council this evening? Mr. Wilson?
Just would like to point out, it is Pi Day. I know we're all kind of caught up in getting ready to have St. Patty's Day, but it's Pi Day today, and for the mathematicians, that's a big celebration there, being 3.14 and the third month, 14th day. Indiana at one time tried to pass a resolution to round pi to 3.2. However, we all should know that that is a ratio. It's a mathematical law and is far beyond the reach of a political law. Fortunately, it nearly passed, but it did not pass, and so the fact that pi is a ratio shouldn't escape any of us, including any of our local engineers.
Bring us a pie next year.
Bringing a pi next year.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for the math lesson. We do appreciate you.
Here for that.
There you go. All right, is there anything else this evening? Okay, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Lovett. All those in favor, yes? Yes. Those opposed, no. We stand adjourned.
Hey, Scott. Good job.